Hi everyone! In this video we will talk about our program, how it works and why it is so. In fact, all the business logic of our program is written in SQL. SQL was chosen as the main language. This was done in order to be able to change this business logic in the future. So, you can write a ready-made model and nothing prevents you changing this model directly from the cabinet, without the need for any addition compilation, or do it separately on the SQL Server. It doesn't matter. We are not trying to give full control to the end customer, so that he can configure forms and do some data manipulation, write some SQL constructor which allows to create queries for people from any conditions. I consider this approach is utopian. The end customer will never do it all by himself. He might try it out there, play, but he is not going to do it in general. Basically, we are just making our own work more difficult by creating such intermediate tools, which is actually more complexity for us than just write a simple SQL code. Therefore, we initially assume that we create some basic settings that the user needs only for using, but all development and configuration is done accordingly through this approach. In other words, we write some stored procedures in which we configure key basic points. There is an alternative solution. I found it recently. Radzen is some company that has a different approach. They allows you to configure and make business application using a certain visual designer. There was a smart somewhere. Here. That is, a certain table is edited, columns are configured for it, and so on. I consider this is utopia, because the end user won't do this, and most likely they will get it crooked. In the picture it is all beautiful, but in fact, in reality, it will be quite difficult to use it. It is much easier to learn SQL and use it, and do it flexibly, because the more you use visual settings like this, the less flexibility you will have in the end. There are some things you just can't change them, and you have to crawl under the system, provide your crutches. Why is this necessary? If you can do it as accurately as possible, as quickly as possible, just in SQL. And at the same time, it is asserted. On the one hand, this is a plus, since there is no infrastructure of its own. On the one hand, it is minus. Everyone chooses for themselves. Our approach, we go from SQL. We use declarative markup. What's the point? There is some kind of markup, for example here at the page. This is one component, which is called a dashboard, and accordingly it unfolds into such beautiful panel. It means all this visualization appeared from this declarative markup. In other words, the system picks up and understands that there is our dashboard component with such code that access the database and extract the necessary data, calls the visualization engine, which builds the whole thing according to certain rules that are set in stored procedures. So, in the end, it all works exactly that. Declarative markup, each component has its own markup. As a result, even the layout designer can work with this. He may change something, he just doesn't need to touch the component of declarative markup, so that nothing there will ruin. But actually he doesn't have an opportunity to do that. He just might break something, but it is rather easy to fix. This can be done by someone who is familiar with visualization. Next point. We are not trying to make a universal database structure. We try to focus on speed. I mean, if there is a question of choosing between speed and universalization, we choose speed, because in the future this universalization may greatly affect the same speed. Universalization also makes it more difficult to create and support system, because the more universal the database structure, the more difficult it is to write SQL on it. The less productive they are, the less leverage we have to influence the further development of the system. In other words, some things are simply impossible to add because it is universal structure. As far as I understand, the system is used in Bitrix. They have some universal, and in the end they cause their own problems. In my opinion, it is much faster to create a structure for the project. Through tables, link them correctly, put indexes and make addition optimization of fields if it's necessary. And then write clean good SQL just for the structure, but not try adapt to a certain universal structure. We focus on ready-made solution. In other words, we create some functionality, some complete and useful blocks modules. A ready-made solution that you can use. This is no longer a complete in the same sense as a dashboard or tables or form or something else. This is already a solution created on the basis of this component. So it can be, for example, an assignment. If you go to the main demo page, you can see various solutions. Look. Product aggregator, service auction, orders, finance task, CRM. They don't contain very many functions, but they contain key basic functions that can be further developed. In other words, you don't need to consider them as completely ready-made solution. This is the basis on which you can make a new decision and accordingly develop it for the system. Here, in principle, I describe the key distinctive feature of our approach to development, and we choose this approach. I hope you agree with our arguments in its favor. Thank you for attention. If you have any questions, please write in the comment.